What's up, guys, and welcome to Press A Repeatedly. Justin Tomasello here with Chris Gold.
Hey, man, what's up? I know that normally we do video game stuff, but I actually have a lot of opinions about Israel and why we shouldn't be supporting them, and my name is Chris Gold.
Chris, we talked about this, and I don't think this is the best platform to express your political opinions.
No, I think it is. And you know what? It's not really political. It's more race and religious motivated, my opinions about this. So, you know, that's just what I want to get into this week.
And once again, your name is Chris Gold.
Yes. Chris Gold.
Yes. So, Chris,
you don't have to keep this up now. I just wanted to make Chris look anti-Semitic.
Mission accomplished. And that's all for this week. Yes, that lovely voice you hear is Dave Mombert, who has not been on the show this year yet, if you can believe it. It's pretty crazy.
I know. I literally was just talking about it to my wife a couple weeks ago. Like, I haven't done Justin's podcast in a while. I know your listeners have been really bugging you about it. Like, a lot of them have gone away from your show because of a lack of Dave. But I'm here like Christ to save you.
They Twitter bombed me where like all the listeners just said like, "Where's Dave, you asshole?" And then they came to my house and just egged the shit out of it. Like, it was ridiculous. I had to spray him with a hose to get him all.
It's all just me. All the listeners on Twitter, it's just me tweeting to you. Like, you should have that Dave guy on.
It's you, and then like you with a wig and like a Southern Belle dress, and then like you with like a businessman. Where's Dave? Where's Dave? What do you want, Dave?
Why would I need different costumes for Twitter?
All the different avatars that you made. Chris is on vacation this week. He's down in North Carolina. He met a goose on Tinder who lives down there, and he went down there to kind of explore that avenue, and we fully support him. And I hope it goes well.
Yeah, we all wish him a full recovery
from goose herpes or Gerpes. All right, and that is the title of this episode for this week.
Sometimes you get it right at the beginning.
So Chris is gone. Dave is here to replace him, and the reason Dave is here is that we are going to dive deep into the Norse mythology surrounding the recently released God of War. This is going to be a spoiler-heavy episode, warning, so if you have not played this game yet, go ahead and feel free to listen to the first half of this episode, but after the break, turn it off because this game is so good, and if we spoil it for you, it's really going to blow. So I know how hard it is to not listen to us, but I will stand by the fact that I do not want this game to be spoiled for anybody, and I'm sure you don't either.
Yeah, no, don't listen to this, or at least only listen to the first half until we really get into it, just because I had no problem coming on here and spoiling the ever-living shit out of Little Nightmares. Like, don't do that with this game.
We even had a message for that one too, just to let everybody know. But the game came out in the end of April. It is now the beginning of July, so I'm assuming a lot of people have played it and beaten it so far. So if you are one of those people, please stick around. A note about last week, we had a critical error last week in our recording. Chris's file actually, we're not sure what happened, something about Ghost, I'm guessing, but his first 53 minutes of his track was just complete silence. And then when he tried to send me the track so I could try and salvage it, his computer blue screen of death, and we had no files from Chris. So if you're wondering, is Chris really on vacation, or is he being brutally whipped by a fat guy in a leather mask right now? I mean, that's up for you to interpret, but yeah, that's why we did not have an episode last week.
Yeah, no, he's probably, it doesn't have to be, those things don't have to be exclusive to one another. He could be in North Carolina getting whipped by a big fat guy in a mask.
By a goose. Yeah. Put it all together.
By a goose wearing a human mask. Oh, God. I don't like that at all.
That's really horrible. How would that work?
I don't know. I mean, we can get into it. We got you guys run long. We got 90 minutes. We can fucking figure this out right now.
Yeah, no, that is true. Yeah, so that's what happened last week. Sorry about that. I guess it's, we had about 64 episodes straight where there hasn't been a critical error. So that's good. We just reset that little thing on the wall that says episode since critical error. We erased the 64 and put a giant 0. But here we are starting a new streak. Nah,
man, don't worry about that shit. You gotta follow the same kind of schedule that my podcast does, where it's just you miss a week or two, and it's not because there was any kind of errors, but just because the day you were supposed to record, one of you got too full and didn't feel like you could deliver. Or you forgot and went to a barbecue. You gotta just roll with it.
Yeah. I should make that too full excuse more often because I'm always full on the podcast and burping into the microphone and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, the fans love it, from what I heard.
Oh yeah, no, there's just a cacophony of burps and farts before we actually start recording. To the point where Nick has to say to Ed and I, are you guys finished? Are you fucking ready? And it's usually wait, oh, bah, all right, yeah, we're good to go.
Yep. I think that's standard podcast fare. If there's a microphone in front of you and you kind of have to burp, you're gonna burp.
Boy, I don't want to say this into a microphone, but and I know this is a video game podcast, but I have to talk about a dream I had real quick.
Please,
that involves burping and farting. I don't fart in front of my wife. I just don't do it. And I woke up a couple mornings ago, maybe a week or so ago, and I had to ask my wife, hey, did I just fart for a full solid 10 seconds before I woke up? And she said no. But here's why I thought that. I had a dream that I was standing in a white room and I was in front of a big red button that just said purge all gases, and I pressed it and just started loudly burping and farting at the same time for 30 seconds, and then I just woke up from that and wasn't aware of what was in the dream and what was real.
I don't know what the best part about that is. Probably the fact that most dreams kind of stem from something that you're thinking in the back of your mind, or something that you experienced earlier in the day, or maybe some sort of internal fantasy. I don't know. That is hilarious.
Yeah, that was my farting dream story.
Dude, I've farted myself awake a few times where I'm just asleep and I guess your body is in relaxed mode and you don't have full control over anything, and yeah, apparently I just kind of let him rip when I'm asleep.
Oh yeah,
there's been a few times where I start farting and then I wake up during the middle of it and I hear the tail end of it and I'm oh wow, I just totally really gotta stop eating Taco Bell.
Cops knock on the door and they're we got a report of a sound complaint.
All my sheets are blown off the end of the bed.
This happens wherever I go. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have had me as a guest.
No, man, this is quality content. I'm cool with this. But I guess we should probably start talking about video games. So, Dave, it's been a long time since you've been on last. In that span of like a year, what are you playing?
Fuck. All right, so I'm not going to remember everything I played in a year, so I'm just going to hit what I've played recently.
Yeah, that's totally really what I meant.
All right, so I bounced around and I hit Terra for a while, which, like, if you're not familiar with Terra, it's like somewhere between Diablo and World of Warcraft. And, you know, I say, like, oh, like, I wasn't really into it. But I found that usually when I say I wasn't really into it, it's after I've sunk in, like, 35 hours into something.
Right.
Which is an insane person thing to do. But, you know, it was enjoyable. Like, it was, you know, it just made me want to play Diablo, if I'm really being frank.
Yeah, I was going to say, you played like a crap load of Diablo 3. How similar are the two?
I feel like such a dick saying this, but it feels like a slightly crappier version of Diablo. Like, it's
that's totally fine. I mean, there's plenty of games that are just like inferior. Like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. You feel like a dick, but
yeah,
you know,
it's
lesser versions of what they're trying to imitate. You know?
Yeah, like it. You know, it was nice. It felt like Diablo, but honestly, a little more complicated. Which I know the guys I play with kind of really liked that. They liked that everything was really customizable, but I'm realizing more and more that's just like not super my cup of tea. And I feel like sometimes there's an issue with games, and I know this is going to contradict some of the stuff I said in the past, where you really can't enjoy it until you're like level 30, which getting to level 30 is like a 20-hour grind. And I love grinding, I really do. But like sometimes unless I'm like really crazy about the game, like Destiny or something, then the 30-hour slog to get to a level where the game is actually fun and playable just like isn't my thing. I can't freaking do it.
Yeah.
Like, let's see what else. So, oh God, I feel I'm like what I'm gonna say is gonna be the douchiest thing ever said on your podcast. So I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty lately.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's
actually
bunch wrong with that.
No, well, not Call of Duty, but the new Battlefield game looks really cool. I might pick that up because I haven't really played a first-person shooter since Destiny 2, and before that, it was like I don't even know when. But, yeah.
You know what it was? It was free on PlayStation Plus, like the new Black Ops. So me and the normal group that I run with picked it up. And like the thing is with those games, like the mechanics are obviously great because they've mastered them over a long period of time, and like it feels really good. I couldn't give less of a shit about the story. Like the story is so convoluted and so over the top that we just make up our own dialogue during the cutscenes and have basically created a whole nother story based around the game. And like there's a bunch of crows everywhere. Like it's a great game mechanics wise, like, but there's not much to do when you finish it. And God, that story, it's so bad. It's so generic.
Yeah, well, that was I think it was the previous Call of Duty, which was a World War II setting. I think it's just called Call of Duty World War II or something like that. And from everything I heard, like, it's a good shooter, and the play mechanics are good and everything. But yeah, like the story is just so generic. Like you literally start like on the beach of Normandy, and like it's just like so been done before, and they don't even try to really step outside the box or anything. And like that's just kind of like a bummer.
Yeah, it's like the character might as well be named like Walter Everyman. um, like everything's pretty straightforward. Like I've just been playing that and like their zombies mode, like because although I hate like I'm not a fan of like zombies as like a genre, just because I feel like it's been done to death. That's never going to change my opinion that it's fun to shoot zombies.
Oh, dude, totally. Left 4 Dead. I will have fun playing that game like anytime, like randomly, here and there. 10 years from now, if somebody was like, "Oh, you want to play Left 4 Dead?" I would have a freaking blast, just like.
I
mowing through them.
Tell people all the time, if you're into Left 4 Dead, you have to get Killing Floor 2 for the PlayStation.
Right.
It feels very similar, like it's a zombie horde mode. Like the characters, just like in Left 4 Dead, like don't take things too seriously. It's got really good mechanics and a really good leveling system, and like it's when I got it, it was free. I don't know if it's free or not now, but it's super worth getting. It's a really fun game. It's one of those games that no matter how many things I delete from my PlayStation, I never delete that. Just because it's something you can drop into and play for an hour and be completely content.
I played that over your house, I think, and yeah, I remember that being really fun. Just like the waves coming in, and like you have so many crazy moves and like power ups that you can get. And then there's like a Blade Master class too, right? There's like
the Berserker.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so cool.
Like nothing feels as good as killing hundreds of zombies with a rotary saw that you can like fire like a gun. It's just god, that's a great game.
Yeah.
It's so great in its simplicity. And then like, oh god, what else? Me and my buddies got back into Destiny 2 for a little while because we're really excited about the Forsaken expansion. That looks like it's actually going to fix everything. I'm excited about it, and I also hate myself because now I've realized what Bungie's formula is, which is offer a game, offer the first 2 expansions included in one bundle, and then the game's not going to be that great, and then on the 3rd expansion fix the game.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and I was actually thinking of you when after the 2nd expansion came out, and it was also not great, didn't really do too much. And I just like what a scam, right? I mean, because you got the game bundle that has the 2 first expansions, and it's almost like they were nothing, like you paid that extra money basically for stuff that you're not even really going to play it that much.
Oh yeah,
and the one that makes you really want to go back to playing, you have to buy again. And man,
and they did this shit last time too. They did this in Destiny 1. And like, here's what I hate. I'm gonna buy it, like, because I love Destiny, like, and
I don't see any problem with that because you play Destiny so much. Like, I mean that makes sense, but it's just frustrating that like those 2 ones that came in the bundle were just basically like throwaways,
No, yeah, they were ultimately nothing, and it's. The other reason this is really, really frustrating and annoying is like Destiny is a game that's best played with your friends. And it's like let's say like you or Zool or Chris or any of them, it's like, what am I supposed to say to you guys now? Like, oh, guys, just like drop an additional $40 for this game that you were kind of lukewarm on, and like then we can play together and it'll probably be good. Like,
Yeah.
it's really frustrating. It's really, really frustrating.
Yeah. It's like I get it because it just they've been very open about how the Destiny gameplay experience works. It's game as a service. It's going to be spaced out over time. There are these expansions that kind of link, and then there's stories and stuff that basically want to keep you playing the game during the years of development into the next one. And I do think there's something to that. I think that a lot of games are going to start heading in that direction soon if they haven't already. I just don't think it's quite there yet. There's still a lot of missteps, and fumbling with those first two expansions, that's going to cut your user base down. Like you said. I mean, I don't want to buy that third one really after thinking about that, unless I hear that it is like really, really awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. It's just frustrating.
No, I totally understand. And it's like the core audience, like the diehard Destiny players like myself and my group, like, yeah, we're going to get it. But I can think of you and like 6 other people that probably won't get it because of this, like, which is just kind of a shame. And the other thing I was real pissed off about was everyone was so mad about the first 2 expansions and how like it wasn't that much and like it didn't really fix anything in the game, which is crap because they fixed everything in the game in the first one, and it's like, why can't that just transfer over to this one? And now they're gonna charge, I think, like $30 or $40 for the Forsaken expansion, and it's like, I don't throw around the phrase like "how dare you" that often, but it's like, it's like, why are we paying for the like to fix your fucking game?
Yeah, seriously. Can you get the Forsaken expansion without getting the first 2 expansions?
That actually is something I want to look into. Like, because if this is really good, like our buddy Jordan, who's like the 3rd member of our group, never got the 2 expansions. So,
Yeah.
I want to make sure that you can just get that expansion and have everything you need. Because, what's the alternative? It's like, oh, like, instead of $30, you have to spend $60 getting 2 expansions that are crap,
Yeah. I'm glad you're still playing it, though. I do want to get back into it. Like, I am feeling that first-person shooter itch, and when I think back to playing Destiny 2 when it came out last year, I mean, it was one of my favorite games of the year. So, I hope this new expansion is really cool. I hope that we can kind of get into that without having to get to the other 2, if that is possible. Because I would like to hop back into that world again.
Yeah, it is. It's just enjoyable. Like, even though Danny and I just talk shit about it the whole time while we're playing, it just feels so good. Like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely.
But
just the cynical gamer,
yeah,
persona.
Yeah.
Like, this game sucks, and you're playing it for like 7 hours.
Yep. That's exactly what we do. Like, yep. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm excited about a lot of games coming up, but that's pretty much everything I've been playing in the last month and a half.
Yeah. What was the name of that game? You actually might have talked about it last time you were on, but it was like a zombie game, but you guys were like building your fort, and like they were coming in waves to attack you.
7 Days to Die.
Oh yeah, that's it.
That game was fantastic. Yeah. Think of it as like an incredibly difficult Minecraft that's way more bleak and not relaxing at all. And it's just like, it's a crafting game where you basically build. The building is difficult. Like, it takes a lot of time and resources, and like even building a crafting table is a pain in the ass, and there's so many more things you need. And then at night, there's zombies during the day. You're in kind of like a post-apocalyptic world. But then at night, the zombies can run. And it is so hard. It's really enjoyable. But like, and you can play it online. And so my friends and I, like, over a long period of time, like, built a house and, like, reinforced it in every way and, like, dug a moat with spikes in it and, like, just, like, went, like, a real Mad Max. And, like,
Yeah.
then every 7 days, there's a horde that comes and, like, just wanders the whole map. And when they find you, like, it's real bad. But, like, you can build guns and stuff, like, but they're all, like, single-shot rifles and... it's a slog, but that game is actually really enjoyable. You're gonna die a lot, like, but it's a fun one.
Yeah. I remember I was over your place watching you guys play it, and your like nightly routine was basically everybody find a perch in the house and just shoot as many zombies as you can as they're coming to the house. And then like you said, you guys built that moat with the spikes in it, so you like see them coming over and then like falling into the moat and like getting impaled. And then was it you? Yeah, it was you, right? When 'cause you guys had like that like back door like behind your house, and
Yeah,
you were going
this
after
was
supplies
Jordan.
or something. Oh yeah.
Our buddy Jordan was running from a group of zombies, and we had a back entrance a couple 100 yards from the house with like a hatch. It was like a little shed, but on the floor was a hatch with a tunnel we dug going to the house. Jordan accidentally fell off the ramparts of our house and was frantically trying to get back to that shed so he could run down the tunnel. As he opened the door to go into that shed, the wildlife is quite hostile in this game. We're being attacked by a bunch of zombies. A huge grizzly bear. We see Jordan run into the shed, and before he can close the door, a grizzly bear runs in, and then the door closes.
Followed him right in.
Oh god, it was so perfect. It was the best thing I've ever seen in a game. And we're just hearing screaming over the microphone because now he's in a small enclosed space with a grizzly bear.
Yeah, it was pretty great.
Yeah, that game is fantastic.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you look up reviews for that game, they are not good. It's probably like a solid like 5 on like Metacritic, and I kind of want to do an episode talking about games that have poor ratings or reviews by like the media or just fans in general, but that we could play and like and still have a lot of fun playing, and like being able to look past some of the stuff, because that game is definitely janky and clunky at times and stuff, but I mean it's a lot of fun too. You guys played that for a long time, I remember.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and like I think there's something to a discussion on that where like, hey, first of all, reviews are opinionated, don't trust them. The best thing to do is strive for yourself. I understand that you don't have a lot of money maybe, and you can't just be willy-nilly buying games, but like watch videos, like it's something that doesn't appeal to somebody, it might appeal to you. And if you can, just try it for yourself, because you might find things that really interest you about the game that other people, were annoyed by or didn't really care. But again, that's a discussion for another time, but I think that would be a good example to use if we ever were to talk about that.
Yeah, no, that would definitely be a neat topic. And like, I know that game gets slammed by critics, but I can honestly say we played that for like almost a month. Not nightly, but close to it. And yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So yeah, that's probably it for me. I'm sure there's more I'm forgetting. But yeah, that's been my gaming history for the last month or so, besides God of War, which we'll get to later. I fell into a deep dark hole with God of War.
yeah, me as well, definitely. That was great, man. Perfect. You really filled your time perfectly, and you earned your paycheck.
Nice.
Yeah. 1 free Rita's Water Ice expires 8/16/2014.
Well, what have you been playing, man?
So last week's episode that didn't see the light of day, Chris and I talked about the demo to Life is Strange 2 that just came out. It's called The Awesome Adventures of Captain Spirit. I think I got that name right. Yeah, basically, if you're listening to this pod, you know that we're kind of huge fans of Life is Strange, and this is the company Don't Nod. This is their sequel that they're working on to the original Life is Strange, and this was a 2-hour demo where you play as this kid Chris, and you are in this cabin with your father, and it's always hard to talk about one of these games because the story is such a big part of it, and I don't really want to spoil anything. But as for the gameplay mechanics, the game looks a lot better. They switched from Unreal Engine 3 to Unreal Engine 4 for this game, and you can definitely tell, like, the animations look better, the facial animations look great, settings and textures look really good. Just overall, like, movement animations just look a lot better. The interface is a lot cleaner and crisper, and I really like basically how they kind of stylized it to be a little bit like childish-y, because you are playing as a child, and the game is basically about his imagination. Like, he wants to be a superhero, so he needs to have a superhero costume. So you, like, go around the house and, like, gather stuff to put that costume together. Or, like, he has to battle the evil snowman, and, like, that's in the backyard, and you have to find the firecracker and, like, put it inside the snowman and then, like, light it on fire and, like, blow it up. And this all, like, this cool kind of stuff that just really, they really express the creativity of, like, a 9-year-old kid, I think, fairly well in the game. And what's interesting is there's actually some dark stuff happening in his life in the game, and, like, he's kind of using this as an escape to get away from that. And, like, the story is really well how they kind of both really, really well written, how they both kind of intertwine like that. And it's just a good experience. It's free. It's only 2 hours, but at the end, there's a message that tells you we will be seeing more of Chris in Life is Strange 2, which is supposed to have this first episode be released in September, which isn't that far away. So, it was a really great intro to that, and I'm really excited for, Don't Nod's next piece in the experience, and really looking forward to playing more of that.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. I still haven't played Life is Strange, like the original. I've been listening to you on and off mic talk about it for a long time though, and I really want to play it.
Well, here's the thing, like, again, this is one of those games where it's kind of hard to call it a game because it's like 90% like kind of like the story and the setting and what's going on, which is great, and, like, really well executed. The dialogue's fantastic. You really get an emotional attachment to, like, a lot of the characters in it, and you really kind of care what's going on. But the gameplay is not really much other than walking around and, like, interacting with things and, like, kind of putting little puzzles together.
I mean, that's fine. That's like Firewatch, and I love Firewatch.
Yeah, interesting you say that, because I'm going to get to that later. So there's a mini game in the game where you have to grab your dad's phone and you have to unlock it so you can play this, like, little mobile game on the phone. And there's a character in the game that, like, it's like Chris's favorite superhero or whatever. It's called Hot Dog Man, or Hot Dog Man. HAWTDAWG Man.
Haughty Dog Man?
And, like, yeah. So he has, like, he has comic books of Hot Dog Man and stuff and whatever. So there's a Hot Dog Man game on his dad's phone, but you need the dad's PIN number to unlock the phone to play it. Typically how these puzzles work in the previous Life is Strange games is that, like, the PIN number or whatever code you need is usually, like, a date or something that you could find, like, around the house. Like, for example, I don't know, maybe it's, like, the last 4 digits of the dad's phone number or something, or, like, the date of his anniversary, right? And earlier in the game, there's a safe in the garage that has a keypad lock on it, and to unlock that, like, the answer to that one was the year 2002 or 5 because that was like the year that Dad won his basketball championship or something like that in high school. And like there's a picture of like the dad holding a trophy, and it says 2005 in the bottom right corner of it. So like, oh, you know, that's an important date. Maybe that was it, and it was. So when I opened that closet, there was a whole bunch of paperwork with like the date the dad and mom got married, the date that the kid was born, like the date that the mom was born, like her birthday, like all these other dates. And so I'm like, all right, the answer is here somewhere. I just got to figure out what's the best way to put it in. So I'm like working on it, and I figure out that most PIN numbers are 4 digits. This one could go all the way up to 11 for some reason.
Jesus.
So I'm like putting in like different combinations of like different numbers and like just working on it, trying to figure it out. And I could not get it. And Chris had beaten the game before me, and he texted me and he was like, look, when you get to that phone part, like it's kind of tricky. You might have to look it up. And I hate looking stuff up, and I really wanted to figure it out. So I'm like spending like this thing's only 2 hours long. I was like maybe 5 hours deep in this game trying to figure out this freaking password. And it was like 3:30 in the morning, and I was literally falling asleep with the controller in my hands. And I was like, all right, I can't do this anymore. I have to look it up. The PIN number is like the words hot and dog, like HAWT DAWG, but in the like, what's it called? Like the phonetic form, like when you have to press the buttons on like a phone keypad. And it makes no sense for a variety of reasons. Yeah. Like, number one, there's no inclination that the dad likes Hot Dog Man at all. Like, he just would tolerate it because his son likes it. Why would he make the PIN number on his own personal cell phone be Hot Dog? It makes no sense. It is like, again, it's like 11 or 8 characters for a PIN number, which is, again, weird. You're used to having 4 be a PIN number. And even on the keypad keys of the phone, like the A, B, C, D, E, F, they're not there. It's just numbers.
Oh,
so
God.
You wouldn't even think that like that would be there. It was so cryptic for no reason. And Chris and I were debating it last week that it probably was that Don't did it on purpose because like as a throwback to old style point and click adventure games where like every puzzle was like that, like so hard to figure out, and you have to try all these different things to like, eventually solve it. And they had to have just did that just to be like a little trolly thing to throw back, because if not, they're just sadists, because that was ridiculous.
I would love if the password was just like 69694269, like just totally breaking from the character in the story.
I mean, it pretty much did. Like it was so ridiculous. But yeah, aside from that, it was really cool. I enjoyed it. Check it out if you're interested. Let's see, what else did I play? Oh yeah, so a couple weeks ago I put up an article on PressItRepeatedly.com about games that I like to play during the summertime, and the one that comes to mind most prominently is the Harvest Moon series, which is like a life sim / farming sim game if you've never heard of them before. They've been around since the Super Nintendo, and there's been a bunch of them. And like me and my brother used to play them all the time growing up, and specifically like in the summertime. And I really wanted to play one, so I found out that Harvest Moon 64 is on the Virtual Console for the Wii U for $10. So I picked it up, and I was like, let me just play this for a little bit and see how far I get. I've been playing it for like 15 hours. Like, I'm hooked, dude. I don't know what it is about these games, because they're not for everybody. Like, it's literally a game about doing chores. Like, you're going outside, you're planting crops, you're like tending to your animals, and
yeah, but we tend to love that shit. When we play Minecraft, we literally build a society. Like,
yeah. No, that is very true, yeah. Something about, like, that sort of living another life, I guess, kind of thing, really sticks with me.
Life where everything is okay. I'm just happy.
Yeah. Another life where bad things don't happen, where I don't have dark thoughts. Yeah, a real getaway. Yeah, so Yeah, Dave, you'll enjoy this because in that game, in the Harvest Moon games, you can there's a town with townspeople in it right next to your farm, and you interact with everybody, and there's a lot of girls that you can date and eventually marry if you want, and you have 5 options I think in this game to try and find a wife, and I was doing this ridiculous charade of trying to date all 5 of them at the same time. And basically what you do if you've never played a Harvest Moon is you gotta talk to them every day and bring them gifts every day. And the more you do that, they have a little heart meter in the bottom right corner when you talk to them, and it'll get bigger the more they like you. And so I'm doing this the days in Harvest Moon, because it works in there's 4 seasons. There's spring, summer, fall, and winter, and each you have an in-game 24 hours to get something done before the day's over, and it moves really quickly, so it's kind of hard to balance your time. So I'm running outside, I'm watering my crops, and then I run into town with all these gifts in my bag, and I'm just running to the different girls and talking to them and giving them gifts, and then basically coming home and then going to sleep at 1 o'clock in the morning. And that was my life for for 2 months. And then it started to bite me in the ass where I was working on my farm one day, and one of the girls, her name's Popori, she came to my farm and she's like, "Hey, how are you? I see you're working so hard. I just wanted to give you these cookies and milk to help you relax on a break or whatever." So I'm like, "Oh, thanks." And they gave me the cookies and milk, and then I eat them. And then as she was leaving, Maria, another girl I was dating, came into my farm, and then she gave me hot tea or something. And then as she left, another girl came in. It must have been so awkward for them to leave as the other one is coming, and both holding gifts and wanting to know what's going on. And then it got to a point where I went to the one girl's house expecting to see her, but she wasn't there, and another girl was there, and I had to be like, "Oh, baby, what are you doing here?"
Yeah.
And
dating multiple people at once isn't easy.
Yeah, it's hard to be a swinger in Harvest Moon life. So yeah, I had to give up on that charade because I got to the point where I was considering selling the animals on my farm so I could have more time talking to the different girls.
Yeah. You think it's going to be great, and you think you're going to be a big shot, and it just creates more problems than it's worth. Everyone should absorb what I'm saying right now. At most, date 3 people.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, keep it to a respectable level, folks.
Yeah. This ring comes right off, ladies.
Oh yeah. It's not even a ring, it's just a Fruit Loop. A very stale Fruit Loop.
Yeah, I don't have a wife. It's just a pillow I've been talking to. Yelling at.
It's one of those Japanese waifu pillows from a manga.
I'm so what do you want to do for dinner?
You're shoving noodles in its face. Just this stained dripping pillow.
See, I kept marrying people in Skyrim, and I know what you're gonna say. You can't marry multiple people. I would marry someone and then decide I didn't like them and divorce them by killing them, and then I would take a new wife. And it's sometimes
why go through all the legal ramifications of divorce when you can just slice them in half? There's
no divorce process in Skyrim, so someone's got to die if you want to remarry, and so sometimes you want to remarry, so you take out your mace and you beat your spouse to death. I don't know what
I don't know what else to tell you. Yeah, well, you're a warlord in Skyrim. It's kind of expected, right?
Yeah.
Marriages don't last more than 15 minutes.
It's my new wife comes home and she's like, "What's that?" And there's just a pile of dead wives on the floor. Don't worry about that.
It's just a dead wife hat. You press a button and the floor opens up and you just fall in.
Just stay out of that room. Don't go in that room. It's just piled ceiling high with corpses. Men
Yeah,
and
that sounds
women.
about right. Yeah, so aside from that, that's all I was playing this week, which brings us into the indie arcade,
Indie arcade.
which from last week, Dave, I'm glad you're on because Chris actually assigned me Firewatch to play.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I don't know how, but it was like the game came out over 2 years ago, and I still had like never played it, even though I always wanted to. And then everybody I talked to that did play it like loved it and had really great things to say about it. And yeah, it was actually on Steam sale for $5, and he was like, "You're gonna play this game," and I was like, "Okay," so I did, and it was awesome, man. Again, this is another game similar to Life is Strange where it's very story focused, very like character driven, and kind of hard to talk about without spoiling. And I kind of don't want to here, but I will say that it really felt like a great, like a well written like suspense thriller kind of movie.
Oh, yeah.
That I didn't even see that coming because like I knew of the game and I knew like the general setting. You know, you're a guy that takes this job in Wyoming to be part of the Firewatch, which is, you know, a couple of lookouts that spread across the park in Wyoming that live in these towers, and their job is to literally like watch the park and see if you see any smoke, see if you see any fires like starting. And it's a very isolated job. You're by yourself all the time. The only companion you have is the head of the lookouts. Her name is Delilah. She contacts you through a walkie-talkie, and she's like your only, you know, the only person with you. You're there for, I think it's like 3 or 4 months during like the dry spell of the summer, and you know, the game is very story driven, very character driven, and really well written and interesting dialogue. And Delilah starts to become not only like a friend but a companion, and also like kind of your like in a relationship status too.
Yeah,
like
no,
like,
I would say so. You definitely develop a romantic thing with her.
Yeah, like you definitely over time, like, you know, start to have a romantic, you know, friendship with her, all over just talking, you know, on a walkie-talkie. But during that, like, you know, she sends you out on like jobs to do during the day, and you know, you start off like scaring off some kids that are like blasting music too loud or playing with fireworks, and then over time you start to like unravel this weird thing that's going on in the park, and as time goes on, it gets like weirder and weirder, and you don't know who to trust, and like you don't know what's going on. And so the game is only about 5 hours long,
Yeah.
and I played it in 3 different spurts, and the time between playing, like all I was doing was thinking about the game, and like I can't wait to get home and like play it more because like I'm so hooked. Like I want to know what's going on. Like they wrote this story in such a way that like it grabs you and like just pulls your full attention into it. And even how the game starts out, it's like a very heavy, kind of emotional beginning of the game. And at first, I was kind of turned off by that. I was like, I don't want to be bummed out. Like, I just want to play a game and have a good time. But in doing that, they really help you establish a connection with the main character quickly. And, like, you are, like, immediately invested in the story and, like, what's going on. And, you know, I just got to say, for, like, a 5-hour experience, it was probably one of, like, the most interested experiences I've had like playing a game in a long time. Like I really enjoyed Firewatch.
Oh yeah, no, that game is fantastic. It pulls you in so quickly. They do such a good job with character development, and you're right, they do like they nail it in the beginning, because I thought the exact same thing you did, where it was like, oh, this is only making me sad. Yeah. And then I realized how genius it was, because in that maybe, I don't know, 8-minute span where it's just like asking questions and narrating the story, you get a snapshot of that character that takes other games like levels and levels to establish. Like, you go in fully knowing who your character is and what their situation is, and you feel emotionally attached to it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
it's really
That's a really
impressive.
good point. Yeah. The way they get you invested in the characters so quickly is really kind of like a marvel. And I can't remember if I showed you the trailer for so the company that made that game,
Valley of the
they're
Gods.
called Campo Santo. Yeah.
Yeah.
And their next game they're working on is called In the Valley of the Gods. And they unveiled that last year, and I think it's coming out sometime in 2019. And I'm super pumped for that. Like, that looks just as awesome. And, you know, I really can't wait to hear more about that game.
Yeah, I'm mega excited for that game. So now I can finally ask you, like, which I wanted to ask you years ago, what did you think of the ending?
So, like, initially, like, immediately as, like, it was over, I kind of felt, like, shafted a little bit.
Yeah.
But then, as I thought about it, I was cool with it. Like, I think it ended kind of strong, and I really don't think they could have done it any other way. I think it led more into, like, the mystery of everything, and, you know, like, kind of dancing around the ending here. But I don't know. I think sometimes it's better to know less than to know what you're looking for. I guess.
Here's, like, after chewing on it for a while, here's what I think about the ending. Because I had the same reaction. I was underwhelmed, and, like, I was kind of like, what the fuck? It is a very real life ending.
Yes.
So often,
Yeah.
like, we're tricked by, like, movies and video games that there has to be a real, like, climax, that there has to be some kind of revelation, that, like, you know, something is going to happen, that it's guaranteed that there's going to be something. Real life, that really isn't the case at all. Like, it feels like a very real ending in that, like, it's something that would happen in real life. Like, and I don't want to spoil it, but it, you know, the whole game is like, you go through these experiences and there's no definitive endpoint. Like, you can definitely tell a chapter of his life was closing, but, you know, we only recognize that the chapters of our life closes after the fact. You know, we can look back and say, like, oh, that was that period, that was this period. Well, it's happening, though. You're not like, and this is the end of this section, like, and that's very much what that game felt like, you know.
Definitely. It really, I mean, you know, it's a good ending that keeps you kind of thinking, because I mean, I was definitely thinking about it for a while, and like I said, you know, initially I was a little bummed out, but you know, after putting some time into it, yeah, I don't really think it could have ended the way that I wanted it to, you know.
Yeah.
If it did, it probably would have had less of a impact, I think, on me.
Yeah. No, me too.
Yeah.
And you know what? The ending got us talking about the ending, so I guess mission accomplished. Like,
yeah. And yeah, I mean, there's definitely some plot points and stuff that I kind of took it that I had some issues with overall, but like nothing major. And yeah, the overall experience, man, was just, it was so great. Like that's what you want from a brief game, you know? Because Nick had played Firewatch over a year ago, I think, and that was when he started talking about the idea of people are giving Firewatch a lot of shit because it's only 5 hours long.
oh, fuck.
And like there are people like going on Steam and writing bad reviews who haven't even played the game and just said like, I will not buy a game that's only 5 hours long. And like it's so ridiculous.
You pay $15 to see an hour and a half movie.
Like, yeah. I've gotten more out of that 5 hour long game than I've gotten out of like games I've played that are over like 40. Like, I mean, and especially now when like as adults, it's getting harder and harder to kind of make time to sit through and like play these very long games. I can totally appreciate a game that can be played in an evening if I wanted to, and then just be able to finish it and then like, have impressions on it and then do like a video game book club to like talk about it, Yeah, so I do not agree with that notion at all that a game's length means it is a bad game. And I really hope that if you're interested in a really well-written story with great characters, that you take the time to check out Firewatch, because trust me, you will enjoy it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I haven't spoken to anyone, at least in my group, that has disliked that game after playing it.
Yeah.
Like, they might have like a note or two, but it's always like, that was really cool. Your brother went nuts over that game. Like, when I started playing that game, your brother liked it on my PlayStation network. That is the only time I've ever seen somebody like something on the PlayStation network. I didn't even know that was a thing until I got a notification that was like Cowboy Huckabee, he likes that you're playing Firewatch. And I was like, did he program that just to let me know that he liked that? Like, I was stoked. I was like, it's Nick. Like, but that's the only time I've ever seen that happen ever. Like, was that game. Like,
yeah. There you go. Did you download the so you find a camera in the game and you can take pictures along your playthrough, and at the end of the game there's a link where you can go and like download the pictures that you took from the camera, and like, it's like full high-res pictures. This game is gorgeous, by the way. They got a really nice like watercolor style texture, and the lighting effects are phenomenal. Like, a lot of the game takes place during like sunset, and you have the sun kind of setting behind the trees, and you have like those god rays kind of peeking through, and like, just this beautiful Wyoming forest that just like, shining in this orange hue, and like it looks fantastic, man. Like, there was parts where like I definitely got lost wherever I was going, because I was just looking up at the trees and like being amazed at how good it looked.
Oh yeah. I actually didn't take that many pictures, and I want to go back and do that, because I thought the camera was going to be for something other than just So I was like, I should save my film. Like, and what a waste that was. Like,
yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I didn't take as many pictures as I wanted to, but I definitely got a few, and man, yeah, they came out like really, really cool. And what's cool is, I don't know if you saw this, but after you beat it, you can go back and play like a free roaming mode. Yeah. Where it's just like you're just in the forest and you can go wherever you want. And I assume you have the camera with you, maybe, and you can take more pictures.
Probably.
Yeah. But yeah.
No, that's awesome.
That's Firewatch. It's awesome, and go play it.
Yeah.
Briefly, I will read the game I assigned Chris last week before the episode got corrupted. And Dave, actually, this is a game I really wanted you to play too.
Yeah.
And that game is called Oxenfree. And it is like let's see. Oxenfree is a supernatural thriller about a group of friends who unwittingly open a ghostly rift. You are Alex, and you've just brought your new stepbrother Jonas to an overnight island party gone horribly wrong.
Damn.
And yeah, so this game, when it came out, I think it was actually the same year as Firewatch, was actually like being in talks of like possibly being like one of the best games of the year by a lot of different podcasts I was listening to at the time. And it's like this kind of teen drama thing that starts off that way, but then like as the description said, like this weird like supernatural force starts to happen, and then like all these weird crazy things start going on, and then you as the kids like investigate it, and it just sounds like a really great story. It's a lot like Firewatch, where it's just a few hours long, but like it's a really interesting, great experience. It's a point and click kind of adventure style game with like different dialogue options that you can take and stuff as you explore this island. Really cool art style with like these dark kind of colors and like ominous like textures and stuff. And yeah, this has been on my radar too for a while. I haven't had a chance to pick it up yet, but yeah, it's on Steam. I don't know if it's on PS4.
I can
It
look.
might be. You'll have to check it out.
Because that
Yeah.
sounds really cool.
Yeah. And if you don't know Dave, he's big into the supernatural stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, he is a co-host of a, supernatural themed podcast. So, yeah. But yeah, that is the game I gave Chris to play. He will be playing it, and we'll be talking about it on the next episode.
That's awesome.
And yeah. So, what do you say we take a quick break, and when we come back, we will dive into the Norse mythology behind the latest God of War game.
Yep.
Welcome back to Press A Repeatedly. Justin Tomaso here with Dave Mombert, and we are going to discuss the Norse mythology background of God of War. And so it was interesting, the God of War games normally took place with the whole Greek mythology background, but for this one, we kind of had Kratos somehow shift mythologies and start talking or living and dealing with all the Norse gods and that whole setting around that. And initially I thought that was going to be kind of a weird transition. Again, I don't even know for sure how that's supposed to work in the lore of the game of how he got from one to the other. But as soon as I started playing the game, I was immediately interested in kind of fell in love with the whole idea of it, and more so at the end. So yeah, what are your initial thoughts on the whole presentation?
I loved it. I'm if you don't know from our my podcast, we're real into Norse mythology, not in a creepy neo-Nazi skinhead way. It's just fun to research because they, by the way, have adopted the Norse mythology as their own.
Yeah, I remember multiple times on the pod that Nick has referenced Norse mythology and stuff that you guys have been talking about.
Yeah. So I was super into it. I was excited from the get-go, and I actually read an article that it came down. The game designers were torn between setting it in Egypt with all the Egyptian gods and setting it with all the Norse mythology and that pantheon. And they were when it came right down to it, they were well, the Egyptian gods are very similar to the Greek gods, and aesthetically it looks the same, kind of. Greece and Egypt are not that far off.
Yeah.
And they were it would be a really bad idea for him to hide out in his neighbor's house, essentially. So it made sense for him to go way north to a totally different climate and try to hide out there, and then lo and behold, run into problems with the Norse gods. I was super on board with it. I loved seeing this Greek Spartan demigod do battle with the Nordic gods, especially because like this game portrayed the Norse gods in a good way, because with all the Marvel movies and everything, it's like everyone thinks of like Chris Hemsworth as Thor, and this like altruistic guy, and Odin is really altruistic, and Loki's kind of a shit, but like ultimately he's a good guy. That's not the case at all in Norse mythology. Like the people did not like their gods. They were not good gods. They were quite cruel, and I thought this game did an awesome job of portraying that.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you can make the kind of reference to the Bible where, God is kind of like a vengeful God, and, all the things with like Noah and then like Samson, and just basically just causing havoc and like testing people and almost like playing with them, it on the outset, when you look at like Christianity, it's like, our God is an awesome God, let's all worship him. But like when you read through some of those old scriptures, it's like, wow, what was this guy doing? Like just having fun up there, like torturing people.
Oh yeah, no, it's the Old Testament versus the New Testament. Like, except the Norse gods were even worse than that. They were like casually cruel. Like there's a story surrounded by Boulder, like what the main nemesis in the game, where Thor is angry and just kicks a dwarf into a fire for no reason at all. It's not unlike him to just destroy an entire family, and like their entire farm and everything. Like they did a lot of things just for fun, and they were kind of dicks about it. They were like the bad guy in an 80s movie's best friend. They would all like laugh at somebody's misery, and like, yeah, they were not good.
Yeah,
like,
and they all wore like varsity jackets and stuff.
Yeah, and they all slept with my girlfriend. Those kind of guys.
Yeah, I vividly remember that scene in God of War.
I remember you sleeping with my girlfriend, you son of a bitch.
Hey, come on. It was
your
the
varsity
80s.
jacket on that you refused to take off, which is rude, by the way.
I took it off, got naked, and then put it back on.
Yeah. And you looked at her and went, "I'm going for a touchdown."
Yeah, high fives all my friends who were there at the time.
Before, during, and after.
Yeah. So getting back on the rails here. What did you think of the representation of? Forgive me, I'm going to butcher these names, but Jürgenminder, the world serpent.
Oh God, I love that. So let's all right, we're gonna dive straight into this shit. So let me give a little bit of background on the world serpent. The world serpent in actual Norse mythology is Loki's child. He leaves Asgard and takes a giantess as a wife, and he has 3 children. He has the world serpent, Hel, who is a girl who is half dead and half alive, and Odin sends to basically rule Helheim. She receives all of the dead that didn't die in battle. And then Fenris Wolf, which is a huge wolf that can talk.
Awesome.
And all 3 of these things play a big crucial role in Ragnarok, which is basically the Norse apocalypse, more or less. So the world serpent, like I said, they took some liberties with actual Norse mythology, but the world serpent in the actual Norse mythos is Loki's child. It's one of the kids that he had with this giantess. But I thought they did an awesome job of portraying the world serpent, especially because in the Norse mythology, the world serpent is pretty much, it's bad. Like, it's something that's it grew out of control. It's Loki's child with a frost giant. It does not like the gods. Ultimately, the world serpent is what kills Thor during Ragnarok. But it's interesting in this, like right away when the world serpent popped up, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, we're so dead. Like its size is so incomprehensible. Like I don't want to fight the world serpent. Not even in fun. Not even like in a video game. And as soon as it was like, no, it's friendly, it really blew my eyelids back, because it was like, holy shit, they're taking the actual, like, not the view from the gods. It's like, this thing is evil, but seeing as how most of the Norse were not fond of their gods, it's like the world serpent in that case would be a good guy. Like he brings about Ragnarok, which is supposed to be the end of all things, but like he's an enemy of the god. Now, they pepper in little details about the world serpent, about its hatred for Thor. Like Mimir actually mentions that it hates Thor because they have a history with one another.
Right.
That's actually in reference to a story where Thor went fishing on Earth with a giant and actually snagged the world serpent, and its hook got stuck in its mouth. And Thor got really close to actually killing the world serpent. He started to pull in the line, and he was reaching for Mjolnir, like his hammer. And right before he could get it, the giant he was hunting with cut the line because he was about to capsize the boat. But that was, and while that whole interaction was happening, Thor whispered to the world serpent, "One of us will kill each other, this I swear." And so they have like a vendetta against each other. It's not really explained why, but like that was the beginning of it. And then because time seems to be a little everyone knows like Ragnarok is coming, it'll be the end. Everyone knows who the players are. And during Ragnarok, Thor and the world serpent straight up kill each other. So it makes sense that he hates Thor, like, because the world serpent in Norse mythology is so big, and it can spit poison, like, which you kind of see when it's talking to you. It's got that like poison dripping out of its mouth. And what happens is Thor actually kills the world serpent, and as the world serpent is dying, it spits a bunch of poison on Thor, who just then burns alive.
Huh.
So I'm really curious to see how in the next game, how the world serpent's death, I'm sure its death and the death of Thor are going to collide in some way.
Yeah.
Like, I could absolutely see like the world serpent helping you kill Thor.
That's awesome. But yeah, they definitely do kind of lean into that feud that they have with each other. There's actually a part in the game where the world serpent has eaten a statue of Thor, and you need to retrieve an item from there, and you actually have to travel inside the body of this grandiose beast and like find that statue and like get the item out of it. But yeah, like you said earlier, it was weird to see the world serpent and like kind of believe that he was a good guy. You know, even when I was playing a game, I was just like waiting for a scene or a moment where we find out like the true world serpent, and like he gets angry and he like destroys the boat or something, or like eats us, like, you know, in a malicious way. Yeah, it was hard for me to trust that like he was an ally, even when Mimir is communicating with him for you, and you know, just even later in the game when he comes to your aid, it was just, I guess it might have to do with just how massive of a beast this thing is, that you just kind of instantly think something that big must only be bred for destruction. And you know, seeing him ominously in the background pretty much the entire game because he literally is so large. They captured like the essence of this giant being in a way that I never even really thought was possible to do in a game. But I mean, like, you look in the background and you're like, oh wow, look at those mountains out there. Oh wait, that's not mountains. That's just lumps of like the skin of the world serpent that are like off in the distance, and you see them like slowly moving as he's breathing. You'll be out somewhere far away, like from where the world serpent is residing, and like look up in the background of the sky, and you'll just see like his face come up and like kind of look around and like take a breath, and it's almost like unsettling to see. And then when he's talking to you, like, you know, he's got such a deep and booming like voice that your controller is vibrating insanely the whole time, and like you like, you know, if you have the volume loud enough, like you're like feeling it in your gut. They really did an awesome job of just like showing like how massive and just wondrous of a beast this was.
Oh yeah, no, it's huge. And what's crazy is it didn't start that big. Like when Thor brought it back from Loki, it was the size of a normal snake, but in the process of him bringing it back, it had grown like threefold. And you know, this is the kind of god that Odin is. He was like, oh, this is going to be a real problem. And so he brought it to our world and just dropped it in the ocean. Like, if that gives you a better snapshot of the kind of god that Odin is.
Not my problem anymore.
Yeah. But yeah, they did such a good job of capturing. I mean, you can't fully capture the scale of the world serpent, but they did such a good job because it wraps all the way around the earth.
Yeah.
Like, it's grown that much.
Right.
But like you really get the sense, like, and I mean it kind of like, correct me if I'm wrong, it's like cutting your way off to the ocean, like in the Lake of the Nines.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, like its body is a wall that you can't get past.
Yeah.
Which was a really cool use of that character, is basically like making the outer wall of the sandbox.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. And it was like, he might move, like, but he probably won't. He's too fucking big. Like,
so, you know, as someone who doesn't really know too much of Norse mythology outside of like the big players of Odin, Thor, and Loki, I was introduced to Freya for the first time while playing the game, and you know, I found her to be like a really interesting character and her story to be really cool. But I was wondering, like, you know, is that something they kind of interpreted on their own? Was there things that they kind of retrofitted to maybe work in with the narrative they were trying to tell, or did they kind of keep that pretty close to you know, the history?
No, that was one thing they actually took quite a bit of liberty with. So Freya was not Odin's wife. Odin's wife was Frigg. And Bolde was Frigg's son, not Freya's. Freya, they got her history right in that, like, she like wasn't of the Aesir. She was from a different realm, and there was a war, but like Odin united everyone, and as part of the truce, was basically that Freya and her brother had to come. I think it was Freya and Frey had to come live in Asgard. So they're basically wards, but she was very well treated, and she wasn't Odin's wife, but she was considered the god of beauty, and everybody in the original Norse mythology, like, their motivation was to fuck Freya. And I don't mean to be crass, but that's what it was. Like, every giant that would like come, or every time there was a bargain, like somebody would like steal Thor's hammer or like take this or do that, the thing that they always wanted as payment was Freya. Like, it was always that. Always,
Yeah.
like, I want Freya. Like, like people would go through really elaborate ploys to try to like quote unquote marry Freya. Everyone just wanted to bang Freya.
Yeah. So like us.
Yeah. Like,
Man has not changed over the span of time.
Oh yeah, no, we haven't changed at all.
Yeah.
Like, and now arguments can be made that like Frigg and Freya are really like cut from the same cloth. Like their name stems from the same Germanic root, basically. Frigg and Freya, they have a lot of overlapping similarities. You can't talk about Frigg without talking about Freya,
right?
Just because they're so damn similar. But they are different characters. However, Freya plays a much greater role in Norse mythology than Frigg ever did. Frigg, like Odin's wife, does not come up that much, except in response to her son. But I can absolutely see why they went with Freya over Frigg. Frigg was kind of just a wife. They're both like cut from like, they can be weaved into a lot of Norse mythos, but like Freya was a really powerful god from the Vanir, and was sent to live with the Aesir. And yeah, it although it's a major liberty, like I understand why they took it.
Yeah.
Like it matches up. Frigg would have been a boring character.
Right. Well, that's great, because I actually leads into my question next of, as someone who is very familiar with the background, as you're playing God of War and like you're seeing things differently than how you know them, did that like initially bother you at all, or were you kind of okay with the idea of them kind of spinning their own yarn and telling their own tale?
No, I was mega into it, because you have to understand something about Norse mythology. Greek mythology, we have a ton of literature on. There's so many sources to draw to. So much of Norse mythology comes from two sources, which are basically like poems. And there are characters that are mentioned in passing that are never mentioned again, but then might be like referenced in another poem. So there's a lot of Norse mythology that's up to interpretation. So, like, although there is an established Norse mythos, like, there is room for some liberties. Like, and, like the main nemesis of the game, even, Freya's son, Balder, like, he is a nothing in Norse mythology. Like he's so one-dimensional. His only attributes are that he is super beautiful and everyone likes him.
Yeah.
That is it. Like he is a one-dimensional character. The idea that what in this case Freya did to him, which was make him immortal, drove him mad and like basically turn him into like a masochist and just wanting to die is such an interesting concept that I loved it. I loved everything they did. I didn't like put on my scholarly glasses at any point and be like, well,
yeah.
Like they just, I thought they did a really cool telling of Norse mythology.
Yeah, and even if it was like, stone for stone, like the exact same story that that's kind of take away from the game, because people that do know what happens are going to know what happens. And like, I really think that being able to have this very structured and well written like background with all these interesting characters, like to have that as your background and then kind of be able to shift some things around and maybe add something here and there and like kind of create your own depiction of it, lends to a great story and a great experience, and it really paid off, I think, in God of War.
Yeah, no, it did. And even their little touches, like the Eden apples that increase your life, Those are actually that's a real thing in Norse mythology. There is a god that tends those apples because although the gods are more or less immortal, they still age. And there is a god that has a box of golden apples that whenever the gods actually begin to like show signs of aging, she gives them one of those and it makes them young again.
That's awesome. I did not know that. Yeah, that's really cool.
So it was cool that they included that. The mead that you keep finding that increases your fury. Now, that they took a little bit more of a liberty with, because the closest thing I can say that is in Norse mythology is the mead of poetry, which, oh God, we're going to go down a rabbit hole right now.
Go for it.
When Odin and Freya, the truce between the Vanir and the Aesir was reached, part of the celebration was Freya and Odin spit into the same vessel. And while they were leaving, Odin was like, "Oh, we should do something with our mixed spit." And he pulled a person out of the spit, and this person was all-knowing. And he started answering questions. And he was so altruistic that he wanted to go out on the road and answer more questions for people. He was basically waylaid by two dwarves who cut his throat and used his blood to make the mead of poetry.
Sounds about right to a guy who was just birthed like minutes ago.
Yeah.
Oh, the world is great. I can trust everybody. Hello, two dwarves with axes coming towards me.
Oh, yeah. No, he knew what was happening too, like, because he knew everything. He just kind of went into it. But the long and the short of it is, this made the mead of poetry, which can be tied to the rage mead that you find, because it's supposed to make you more artistically inclined and scholarly, but one can make an argument that it's not a far walk to, like, war and fighting is Kratos' art form, like, and the mead is just perfecting it and increasing his rage when he goes into a Spartan rage is like adding to it that much more.
That makes total sense to me.
And then those ravens that you have to kill all over the place, that is also from Norse mythology. Odin had two ravens called Hugin and Munin, which stands for thought and memory. And what these things would do, there was only two of them. I know there's like 1 million in the game you have to get.
Yeah.
But they would fly all over the world and through the different realms and everything, and just watch and go back and sit on Odin's shoulders and just tell him secrets. Like, so it makes sense that you're hunting and killing these things because they're Odin's spies, basically. Like, they are always watching and they're always reporting back to him. So it makes sense that, like, you're axing these things whenever you see them.
Yeah, so not knowing that when I was playing the game, whenever I saw them, I was like, oh, wow, look at these beautiful mystical creatures that I should not interfere with that belong in this realm. And then, like, halfway through the game, I'm like, oh, crap, you're supposed to kill these bastards?
Yeah. No, the first time I saw one, knowing where I stood with the gods, I, like, hurled my axe into it.
I would assume that the stories, there's brief stories told, and there's like wooden chests that you find where, Kratos opens up the two arms of them, and then like Atreus runs over with his notepad and like he's writing it down, and like he kind of talks about it a little bit. I would assume that those are kind of like straight lifted from the mythology and not really altered that much.
Pretty much, yeah. Like they're close. Honestly, there were parts of those I didn't follow. Like, I followed in the game, but, like, was trying to find the links between Norse mythology and that. And, like, yeah, a lot of those are just straight-up retellings of story. They did a pretty good job with those. The whole thing with the frost giants and their world being locked off, I'm not as familiar with that. Or, like, their God of War, basically, because their God of War that they keep talking about, like, they did a good job in that, like, it makes sense that he was more of like a diplomat than a God of War. Like, because if you're not familiar, the word law comes from from Norse. Like it like for all like the Viking berserker shit, like they were real into like the word of the law and diplomacy and everything. And he was supposed to be this god of wisdom, and he'd travel to all the different realms and he met with everybody. And like they did a, he's the closest thing to like the god of war that isn't Thor, because like Thor is the protector basically. But yeah, no, they did a good job with those.
Yeah,
I found them interesting.
Yeah, that was really cool. I liked how they presented them. I really like the ancient like illustrations and stuff, and reading Atreus's interpretations of them was pretty cool as well. Speaking of Atreus, and here we're getting into major spoilers, but at the end of the game, you find out that Atreus apparently is either a reincarnation of Loki or he is Loki in this telling of the world. So again, as someone who
I think he is just Loki.
Yeah, as someone who's not too familiar with Norse mythology, I first took that reveal as he was named after Loki, because they mentioned that Faye, Atreus' mom, is part giant, and like she was telling all these stories to the giants, and Loki was being such a major part of that. But then after talking with you guys, I kind of realized that no, he actually is supposed to be Loki. But I was wondering if you could kind of maybe talk more about that.
So I know in like the Marvel movies, Loki is depicted as being Thor's brother. That's not the case. Like he's technically a blood brother of Odin, but that's besides. So we can go down a huge rabbit hole with that, but we don't have to. But basically, Loki is always on the outs with the other gods. Like he gets himself into trouble a lot, and then like he uses his cunning to get himself out of trouble. But he plays a really big part in Ragnarok, which is the destruction of the gods. Now, when you start looking at everything that happens in that game, where he's working to destroy the gods, even if like that's not his main objective, like he's definitely, him and Kratos are like bringing about the end of the Norse pantheon. And he has pretty much all the same skills that Loki has. Like he's incredibly good with language. Like he's very smart, very cunning, which all falls in line with Loki. His mother is a frost giant, and they talk at the end about how their actions have moved Ragnarok up from 100 winters to 3 winters, which is cool because it means we're probably going to get 3 games out of this. But that really makes sense because all of Ragnarok really starts because the gods put Loki in bindings. They get mad at him more or less for like killing Baldur, which we'll get into in a minute. And then like he pissed off all the gods by just being an overall dick. So they bound him in a cave. And when he escaped, like he went and got his kids, like the world serpent, Fenris Wolf, and Hel, and brought about Ragnarok. And it really makes sense because he is bringing about Ragnarok. He's just doing it in a slightly different way in this game. Not to mention, this actually falls in line really well with when Freya's son dies, like the person you've been fighting throughout the whole game with the tattoos and everything. So, I'm just going to call her Freya's son. In reality, it's Frigg's son.
Yeah.
The mythology behind that is he started having bad dreams of his death, and everybody loved him. He was very, very, very well liked, and he was beautiful, and he was really like the mantelpiece of the gods. So Frigg, worrying that Odin went out into the world looking for answers. And he resurrected Loki's wife, the giantess, who basically said, Ragnarok is coming. You won't be able to save Baldur. Like, everything is going to fall apart. So Frigg went around to everything in the world, all the stones, all the animals, all the trees, everything, and asked, and basically drew an oath from them that they wouldn't hurt him. And because he was so loved, everyone took that oath. And what happened was she literally did everything in the world except mistletoe. The reason she didn't do mistletoe is it was so young and so insignificant that she just didn't think it was worth her time, more or less. And so she returns to Asgard, and everybody's having a great time with Baldur, where they're basically like throwing rocks at him and hitting him with clubs and everything, and nothing can hurt him. Like, and they're doing this for days because this was the kind of like stupid jock thing that the gods did.
Dude, let's be honest. If you were invincible to everything, we would spend weeks trying to hurt you with like running you over with Mack trucks and just like pouring hot liquids in your crotch.
Oh yeah, and that's exactly what they were doing. Like, and Loki was pissed off because he's Loki, and he actually Baldur had a brother who was blind, who was sad because he couldn't take part in trying to injure his brother.
What a great sentence.
Yeah. So Loki changed his form and spoke to Frigg and said was like, did you get everything? And she said everything but the mistletoe. And he went out into the woods and made a dart out of mistletoe and came back and gave it to the blind brother and said, you'll be able to join in the fun, throw this dart at him. And it killed him. This is really cool because those arrows that you get, those green arrows that Freya freaks out about and throws in the fire and tells you to destroy, those arrows are made of mistletoe.
Right.
And you have it's like such a throwaway thing in the beginning of the game when you get those that Kratos fixes Atreus' strap with one of those arrows. And during that final scene, when you're fighting Baldur and he like grabs you and your arrow penetrates him and it breaks the spell, that falls in line perfectly with Norse mythology in a roundabout way. He's being pierced by a small mistletoe dart that's draining all of his powers, and the cause of it is Loki.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so Loki, just like in Northern mythology, causes his death with mistletoe, and it basically like is the beginning of Ragnarok. It's the beginning of the gods being really pissed off, about their actions. So yeah, that really fell in line in like a cool roundabout, previously like undone way, where it just lined up perfectly, but not in like a we're gonna paint by numbers and follow the exact story kind of thing, you know.
It was literally telling the same story differently, if that like makes sense. Like coming to the same conclusion, using the same characters and the same actions. And yeah, that's really interesting. I actually thought that whole story was kind of something that they had crafted for the game. I didn't know that was all the mistletoe and everything was actually part of the lore as well.
Oh yeah, no, that's 100% part of it. Like that was the first time. Like I had like on and off, like I'd seen like some Loki stuff from Atreus, but not really. But that was the first time I was like, holy shit, he just killed Baldur, like with mistletoe. Like, this might be Loki. Like, yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, definitely awesome. It's really cool that that the story had such a great effect on both of us, whereas somebody who's not familiar with the mythology at all still thought it was really interesting and like an awesome, climax to the game. And then somebody who kind of knows what to expect from knowing it all, but having it seen and presented in a different way, also got the same enjoyment out of it. Like, that must have been a very hard thing to kind of write for in the planning stages of the game. But, I mean, they nailed it, and that just adds more, like, a testament to how great of a game this really is.
Yeah, I couldn't have been more happy with this game.
Yeah.
And, I'm actually going to say, if you were into this game at all and want to check out Norse Mythology, the best place to start, Neil Gaiman has a book called Norse Mythology that is such an enjoyable read because it's Neil Gaiman. Each story is like short and to the point and like has like humor and action in it. And if you read that after playing this game, it'll have an impact on you. It'll be like, holy shit, this is what they did. Like, they pulled that from this and this from that. Like, and you'll have a good time. And it's an enjoyable read all the way through.
Yeah, I'm totally picking it up. I was thinking about picking it up before I even played God of War, just because I'm a huge Neil Gaiman fan, and I was interested in Norse mythology, but I didn't really know too much about it. But, now after playing this, I totally want to read that. And seeing his take on everything just sounds like super enticing to me. So, yeah.
I developed this like funny theory about the God of War series, where Kratos is he killed everyone in the Greek pantheon. He's clearly gonna kill everyone in the Norse pantheon. What if it turns out that Kratos is the Judeo-Christian god? Where he's basically killing all of these pagan gods, and like he's gonna be the only god left, and that he's just gonna be God. Like,
that is really interesting, and probably could be spun out into its own game.
Yeah, I don't believe it, but I so want it to be true. Yeah. It would make so much sense. The world is so fucked up.
Oh my god, yeah. Seriously. What do you think of his beard, man? Like, how great of an epic like gaming beard can you think of? Besides Kratos's.
I mean, first off, I got beard envy.
Oh yeah.
Right off the bat, I'm a 30-year-old man and I can't grow a beard. It's not going to happen. It hasn't happened for me yet. I can grow a shitty mustache and goatee, and that's it. So I'm already super envious of any beard. But then, like, Kratos' beard in this is so cool, like, and manly, and like,
yeah.
I don't want to talk about it.
So I thought this was really cool. I still have the box that my PS4 came in, and I got it was pretty much a launch edition PS4. Got it like a few months or maybe like half a year after the thing launched, and on the back is a character like design of Kratos, and this is way before God of War was even in planning or anything. And it's Kratos with like a huge beard. It's braided and longer, and he's wearing like a headdress made of antlers, I think, too. But it's just like a really cool illustration. And
really?
Yeah, and like they must have, had this idea maybe long before they even thought, and kind of started rolling with it from back then. Because it's not a reference to any specific game or anything. It's just like some really cool concept art that they put on the back of the box. And I'll take a picture of it and put it on Twitter or something. But like it's like a really cool. I didn't think too much about it until I actually played God of War when it came out, and I happened to glance over and see that again. I was like, wow, that's really awesome that they were like, maybe they saw that concept art and was like, hey, let's make this grittier version of Kratos where he's older and he's got a bitchin' beard.
Yeah, because the beads in the beard is like very specifically a northern thing, like a Norse thing.
Yeah.
And the antlers are also mega Norse.
Yeah.
Like very much so. Like there's a lot of stag mythology in Norse mythology. That makes me think that, and especially because that's such a solid property for Sony. I wonder if this was in the making, and what you saw on that box was like very early concept art.
It must have been. I mean, if you think about it, PS4 launched in 2014. God of War came out now, and of course, games take a very long time to make. So maybe there was these concept arts that were kind of going around, and somehow they thought it was like a cool idea maybe to throw one of them on the back of the box. But I just thought that was super interesting.
I'm sure that was a nod to what's to come, because like if you were like, oh, I found this 4 years ago on DeviantArt, then I'd be like, well, that makes sense. But seeing as how
sandwiched
Sony
between two different drawings of like Sonic making love to a female Sonic or like a naked Mario.
Yeah. But seeing as how that was on the actual box, that very much, I think you might have the earliest concept art for God of War.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, dude, thanks for being on the episode, man. I think that was a really great discussion. Really answered a lot of questions that I had regarding the lore and everything, and definitely more, interested and invested in learning more from just the history of it all.
Oh, there's so much more to unpack. That's why I recommend Neil Gaiman's book. We didn't even get to like Idris and Brock and everything. But yeah, no, this was a lot of fun. I'll always talk about Norse mythology.
Yeah, definitely. And again, Dave's podcast is called The Age of Enfrightment, where they kind of talk about all things kind of spooky and supernatural. And if you are into any of that sort of stuff, I highly recommend you go check it out, because it is really great. And it's a great mixture of hilarity and also like really some thought-provoking stuff. They recently did an episode on war that kind of like shook me to my core when I was listening to it. But yeah, you can check that podcast out over at aoepod.com.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. And that's all for this week. Remember, Press A repeatedly posts new episodes Tuesdays on iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, YouTube, and Spotify. If you like what you hear, please take a moment to rate and review the show, or tell your friends about us. It helps other people find the podcast and will really help us grow. And thank you to all who have rated, reviewed, and subscribed so far. We love you. You can follow us on our Facebook page or on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Press A Repeatedly. I'm at Oaf7724. And you can follow Dave's pod, The Age of Enfrightment, at AOE_podcast. You can email us any questions or comments at parpodcast@gmail.com. That's parpodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to check us out on our new blog at pressarepeatedly.com. That's all for this week. Justin and Dave signing off. And remember to blast through your energy early and come up dead last in the yearly town horse race. Press A repeatedly.